As I said, Ian's from DQ, so he'll be presenting on PLANR. PLANR is similar to, but it's replaced the previous DQ planning and mapping tool that was used in the Ag Stewardship Program. So there's some of you that were involved in the Ag Stewardship pilots that it'll look a bit familiar to. It's being designed to provide an entry point for landholders that are seeking to create income from biodiversity and carbon services. And it's essentially in the development phase of the platform, and there's more functions that will be added. So I understand it's going to include tools to assist with planning and cost estimation of establishing environmental projects, and as well as having some insights into the biodiversity benefits of projects. I understand it's going to deliver a sort of a score. So given the role of regional NRM organisations in supporting landholders to navigate the carbon and environmental market space, I'm hoping that this group, will be able to provide some feedback on the tool so it can be optimised for landholders and others working in the environmental market space. Thanks very much, Ian. I'll hand it over to you.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Look, yeah, PLANR is it's going to look very similar to some of you that use the National Stewardship Trading Platform. We've essentially rebranded it to be used for the nature repair market. We're still using PLANR for the reporting of the pilots, but as we kind of rev up for the nature repair market on early Jan, we kind of rebranded, but we're also doing some active development around new capability that Matt and Kath will kind of show off, and also kind of tweak it for the nature repair market and how that first method is going to work. The idea today is also to kind of garner some support about how we can make this tool better. It's all about that primary use case is allowing landowners to understand the assets they've got and their potential under the nature repair market. It's also kind of the front door for our ecological knowledge system, which is the big CSIRO project that I lead. A lot of that work is just data and data products. We need a front door for that, for landowners to kind of interact with it. And so we see PLANR as being one of those key kind of front door, front ends for this data. So yeah, they're really keen to get some user testing of people that actually know the space well and work on land. So yeah, I'll hand over to Matt and Kath, who might demo some of the new capability, and also kind of maybe talk to how some of the testing could work. Cool, thanks Matt and Kath.
Great, thanks Ian. Yes, so I'll take us through today. The plan was to just do a very quick demo, and then we can talk about the ways in which this group and the landholders in your region, I think, can help develop it. So my background is in something called human-centered design. So my role on the PLANR team is really about trying to make sure that the interfaces that we build in the software connect with the way landholders think and talk about their land and the way they want to think about how they create an environmental services project. So whether that's under the nature repair market scheme or in any other way, my role is trying to really make the interface as simple as possible for people. And we often hear landholders say, well, I'm not a computer person, so I kind of outsource that. That's what this problem is trying to solve. So it's trying to empower landholders to do and understand their land in this way so they can have better conversations with yourselves, potential intermediaries that come along saying, hey, I think you should do this and do that. It's really about empowering them. So the more landholders we can talk to and watch using the platform, the better we become at being able to shape the platform really easily to fit their mental model and their needs. So I will just do a quick screen share. All right, it's going to kick me out, but I'll come back in a second.
Uh-oh.
Does anyone have any questions about PLANR? Well, my Matt's trying to figure it out.
If you've got a question, please feel free to unmute and ask it. You can. The question I'll just start, Matt. So I assume PLANR can be used sort of by anyone, just as Matt or Ian, sorry. I'll let Matt focus on sharing his screen. So it can be used by anyone to sort of plan projects. It will eventually connect to the nature repair market, but essentially if you just want to plan a project, you can use it now just to develop your maps and get a cost estimate, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. So I think we're certainly kind of our first use case is the nature repair market and making it available for the nature repair market. But also, I think as you'll see, that some of these tools are very applicable to other investment programs, and especially the cost estimator, like, understanding how much some of these restoration projects costs, and then also kind of being able to kind of communicate that to a buyer and say, well, this is why it costs so much. Seedlings are $4 and tree guards are $5, $1 each. Like that, it's actually a really good tool, not only for the nature repair market, but for any kind of restoration or investment program, I think.
I think it'd also probably be a useful tool sometimes when landholders are being asked to estimate their in-kind contribution and that kind of thing for grants and stuff like that. They might be able to use it in that sort of circumstance as well.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, it looks like you've succeeded, Matt. So we'll let you drive it for us.
Yes. Okay. So this is the homepage of PLANR. You'll be able to find it at planr.gov.au. So it's all open, and you can see everything that I can see, except for the cost estimator at the moment. But in the next little while, we'll be putting that public too. So people will be able to have a play around with that. At the moment, we're geared up to do kind of 5 things. So to be able to understand and compare your land's condition for biodiversity, to estimate the cost of an environmental project, to do a very ballparky estimate on your greenhouse gas emissions, to plan an environmental project, and also to share or sell projects and outcomes. For this demo, though, I'll focus on the planning, because I think that's probably the most interesting thing for this group and the landholders that you support. So just using the top area here, I'll go to Plan Projects. That'll open up a map. I will just locate a place over in Mitchell that I am familiar with. So you can search and locate your property in this way. We have some data layers, for example, that allow you to turn on property boundaries. So you can see where it just helps you locate your property more easily. We also have things like eligibility layers for reforestation projects and things. So we're able to tell you where you can and can't, or where you should or shouldn't plant for eligibility, as well as a nationwide carbon sequestration potential layer. So if I just zoom out on this, you'll see that you can do a very quick analysis at quite a large landscape level on where different parts of the landscape that have a different ability to sequester carbon.
Matt, can I just, and actually we might run this session a bit differently. Usually we hold questions until the end, but I'm just thinking like while we're actually looking at the bits, it might be more useful for you and for us to ask questions as we go. So when are you saying the ability for it to sequester carbon, what's that based on? Is that based on like state mapping, or is it sort of based on like rainfall? What's informing the?
Do you want to answer, Matt?
Yeah, sure.
I think I know the answer. I think this is the M layer that goes into full cam. So it's essentially capacity to, it's whatever they use to kind of maxes out. It's mainly driven by climate, but it's that maximum capacity of carbon sequestration.
Yeah, sure. And that's for vegetation, not for soil. It's just veg.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, so we've got a few data layers there. I'll zoom back in and turn a couple of those off. So the current intent of this is for a landholder to kind of mark out their property boundary, so the space that they're working in. So in this case, I'm just going to pop in a area like this here. And what that does is measure the general size of that. It also allows us to start exploring environmental accounts for that area. So when I access this link, you'll see that I can kick off a greenhouse gas emissions estimation using this. I won't go into the deep dive on that, but it is a ballpark estimate for that area, and it uses the location that you've marked out to sort of pre-fill some of the questions that some of the more advanced sort of, it's based on SBGAF and things like that. So, but location is a component of that overall emissions calculation. We also provide a condition for biodiversity score. So this gives landholders a sense of your landscape's capacity to support biodiversity. And we do that. There's a very complicated method behind some of that, but really what we're doing here is looking at land use, land cover maps of the area that you've defined. They themselves get a value. So in this case, you can see here there's quite a large bit of vegetation, native vegetation, a bit of pasture, grazing land, and some bare grazing land as well. And then we also provide a comparison score. So how this land compares roughly to similar land in this particular region. As I said, there is quite a detailed method that you can have a look at behind all of that. And we also
sorry, Matt, I've just got a question in the chat. So Rhiannon's just
sure.
asked, can the emissions calculations be imported?
No, they cannot at the moment. No.
Can they be exported?
Yes, they can.
Okay, great.
All
right.
They can. It is a very ballpark figure though.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not something to sort of rely on, particularly for an account. Because we're using a very simplified version of some of these numbers just to give landholders an indication of where they like a number that's sort of in a ballpark. Yeah. So the condition for biodiversity scores here, you can also change these numbers depending on what you think your land use, land cover is. So if I think that this 39% of native vegetation is not that, and I can change that to something else. So maybe I want to say it's natural grazing land and it's bare, just to show you a big difference. And you'll see that that condition score drops down. So some very lightweight calculation there. We also show a history of tree and ground cover for this site as well. So over time from 88 till 2020, you can see the percentage of area that has been tree cover, obviously not a very lot here, and also the ground cover as well. It's interesting, we've started seeing some of these graphs being screenshotted for other consultants' PDFs and things. So there are people out there using PLANR to get access to this sort of information. You can also print these reports and download them as CSVs to process this in other places as well. Beyond environmental accounts, what we also enable somebody to do is create a potential management area. So for example, let me just say I want to carve off this chunk of my land here to do some work in. Once I draw that polygon, we go off and calculate the potential for carbon sequestration that you might be able to gain from this area, how much of that area is eligible, and you can also run it through different calculations based on the type. So if I'm doing a hardwood plantations project, for example, we'll give you a slightly different number. The softwood one will too, and we're also doing natural regeneration, so you can start to just get again a sense of what the carbon sequestration looks like for a particular area, so that you can then iterate on this. So you might say, actually, what happens if I, chop this into half? And you'll see that that number will change, so slightly lower, just because there's less area to do. And you can also play around with that as much as you like. For the demo, I'll just show a couple of areas because I think the cost estimator is the thing we want to explore a little bit more deeply. So now I've got a couple of areas here, and as soon as I add a management area, I can start to estimate project costs on that area. So when I click estimate project costs, there hasn't been an error, that's just the staging environment. You can see the map that I won't sort of go through the detail of what's on this page, but essentially what we're saying is we want to use this location for estimating costs. We agree that all of this stuff is not financial advice. We ask a few project setup costs. So whether someone owns the land makes a difference. any other initial project costs that people want to add, they can add these at any time. So this is stuff like initial site visits, any financial advice and things like that. So I might say, you know, agronomist consult to start off with, and that was $3,000. I can add as many of those as I want. I can also specify the length of the project, and I can change this at any time as well. And we kind of use that to calculate annualized payments for things, as well as allowing landholders to put in their financial settings. So putting in their own inflation rates for both general and land. There's some more complicated financial settings that I think we're going to need to explain a bit better, but things like discount rates and target profit margins as well. And I'll show you how those work in a moment. But once I've kind of got the bare bones of my project set up, I can click save, and where I end up, oh no, just see, that's a good thing to have tested. No, all right, I'll go to a backup, sorry. I'll just quickly step through that again. I think I'm in the same spot here, roughly. That's my backup plan. Yes, all right, so I've got a couple of management areas there. I might just edit these to put them. So this is roughly the same place. But you can see that we're still doing all the same stuff here, still calculating. So this is just south of Mitchell. When I go over to estimate project costs, as you can see, this is still under development. So it's the perfect time to get people looking at it and playing with it and giving us feedback on what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So again, I'll just put in here agronomist consult for $3,000. I'll just leave everything the same as it was. Okay, so this is what we want to see. So at the moment, I have an untitled project. You can see the same map that I have that I've got here. So we've pulled that over from our mapping tool. And this is where you sort of get a single page look at all of your costs. So the project setup costs, you can see the cost of land. I've put nothing in for that. My agronomist consult is in there for $3,000. I've still got my two management areas here that I want to think about. So I've got this sort of triangle shape and then this other different shape down here. And then we also can help people think through site assessment, monitoring and other costs as well. So doing things like baseline assessments, monitoring, reporting and auditing over time, and the cost of getting materials to your project. What that does is totals that all up, both from an establishment point of view and an ongoing point of view, and then allows you to do things like calculate potential carbon credit income based on your areas, as well as help you understand what you might need to charge for something like this as well. I'll dig into that a bit more as I flesh out the management area costs. So for any particular project, I want to start to expand on my first area. So when I go into an area, I can specify things like what I want to do in the area. So whether I want this to be a restore, rehabilitate cleared land, or whether I want that to be a protecting remnant vegetation. I can answer a question around how complex the site is. So this helps us, I guess, provide indicative prices for things like site assessments and stuff. So if you've got a simple site where there's not much variability in the vegetation, that's going to be a bit cheaper overall than something that is a lot more complex. And so in this case, given that, you know, I'm mostly on flattish, pasture-ish kind of land, we'll leave that one as simple. It also allows you to do a quick estimate. So if you've already talked to some people and they've kind of gone, oh, we think this work is going to cost you X amount of dollars, you can use this calculator to enter that in, or we can use the calculator to help you step through the process of thinking about all the costs that go into making a project. So you'll see here, as a quick estimate, I can just chuck in a number. So what's your number for all your infrastructure and any other additional costs? The other version here is I can do a detailed estimate, and we can walk you through the different activities that you may or may not need to do on this particular piece of land. So in this case, I want to do some fencing. I've got to put in some water infrastructure. I've got to put in some weed control. I want to do some pest control. And by ticking on these activities, we start to walk people through the sorts of costs that need to go into creating an environmental project on this land. So for example,
can I just jump in for a second there? So
sure.
This planner assumes then that you know kind of what you'll have to do for your project to generate good biodiversity outcomes. So it's assuming that a landholder will have a good grasp of how often they might need to do, for example, weed control over a plot of land to establish native seedlings.
Yes, that's correct. We are building some stuff that is sort of a bit before that, even though we built the cost estimator, I guess, first. What we're looking at with particularly heading into the NRM is how we help people understand what they actually need to do in the first place. But at the moment, yeah, this is really about somebody who's kind of thought about this already and is thinking about, well, I know I need to fence this bit off, or I need to irrigate this bit or something like that.
Yep. But sorry, and also this, I think there's some default costs in here, aren't there?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay. And it's got the fencing. Yep. Okay. You go into that.
I can talk about.
Stop interrupting.
That's okay. I'll talk about that in a moment. So, yes. So, let's use fencing as an example because I think it's a good one. You might say that for this area, what I want to do is just fence this whole thing off because I want to keep the animals out. You don't know necessarily how long that is, so you might decide to measure that on a map. So we've got sort of a measuring tool. So for example, if I know that I need to fence off almost this whole area, oh sorry, I've got a bug here, but I don't know why. You can click behind this save cancel bar, does it use this length? So it automatically calculates the length based on that drawing line. So I might run straight through there as well. I can do that too. But if once I click use this length, you'll see that that number is entered in directly. And so we can do that for anything that requires a length. We can also help people estimate things like water infrastructure. So say I want to have 10 water troughs and my cost per trough is $300. You could do the same thing for tanks. I need 5 extra tanks for this, and each tank is going to be $5,000. And I need, for every tank, I need a pump. So I'll do that. And the piping, I also want to measure that on a map. So I'm going to draw this line here because this is where all my irrigation is going to go. I'm going to close that off and see that it's about 2.5 kilometers. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. I'll just zoom back in so you can see here. So that was about 2.5 kilometers. We also help people think about the pipe diameter, and you have slightly different costs for smaller pipes than bigger pipes, etc., etc. I won't go into the full detail, but we do that for all of the various types of activities that one might do for one of these projects. Once I hit save, you'll see that it returns to the overview, and you can see here that I haven't actually put in that many numbers, but we've currently got this $110,000 cost. So it starts to give people a sense of just what it might cost to establish a project. We also allow you to adjust essentially unit prices of materials and things. So once I click on the default prices link, you can see that I can start to add in individual prices for things. So a per hectare per treatment for spot spray versus boom spray versus other unit prices for materials and labor across pest control, how much seedlings are going to be, how much certain types of soil prep's going to be. You'll see things like fencing here, for example, which we did. So where maybe we say it's $6 a meter, maybe fencing's gone up. So I'll double that for now. But you can get quite fine grained with how many different types of unit costs you want to talk about. Same thing with tree guards and watering and pumps and things. But if you remember, it was about $110,000 in the original instance, and I've gone and doubled the fencing cost, the fencing wire pickets and droppers per meter cost. So you'll see that when I come back here, that cost has gone up as well. So that's the general concept. You can also walk through initial site assessment costs as well. And this is where things like we're able to say, because you have a medium-sized simple site and it's for rehabilitation, here's some kind of general cost estimates for that sort of thing. But you can put in whatever number you want there. So, I think this is going to be more than that. And so the idea is you can sort of iterate through and around your property to get to a point where you have a fair sense of what a decent sized project for you looks like. And once you're done with that, you can also look at what a schedule of payments might look like as a CSV. I'll just see if you can see this. Let me just chuck it on my desktop. And open this out here. So if I open this CSV, you'll see here at the moment we haven't, because all of my inflation numbers, etc., were 0, we've just assumed an even payment over that 20-year project. But if I then come into my project costs again and change some of these numbers, so let's just say it's a 3.2% general inflation rate or something like that. This will test the system all right. You can see now that the new CSV starts to change those numbers to annualized payments for how you might expect prices to change over the lifetime of a project. So there's some pretty sophisticated costing stuff there. Obviously, we're still working through a bunch of bugs and things. You can also do a very quick carbon revenue estimate here as well by just chucking in your number of carbon credits, how much you think those are going to go for, and then whether you think they're going to increase or decrease over time. And that'll give you a sense of the present value of a carbon credit at the moment as well. So I guess I'll stop there because we go down lots of rabbit holes and just see if there are any questions or comments at this point. I know I went through that incredibly quickly, but I'm also very conscious of people's time too.
Thanks so much, Matt. So I'm going to go to Cherie. Had a question in the chat that we'll ask first. So Cherie said that one of the challenges we found was that where a landholder had 2 properties that weren't adjoining parcels, but they wanted the GHG calculation to be based over both properties. Can you add like property projects together in PLANR?
So at the moment you can't, but we're trying to understand how much of a use case that is. So the more we know about those sorts of instances, the more we're able to help prioritize and argue for making those sorts of features and functions available.
Okay, great. And we've got another question in the chat now. Who pays the upfront cost? It's a good question. Maybe Ian wants to answer that one.
Yeah. Ian?
Yeah, this I suppose goes to how you expect the tool to be used under the market and in other ways, I guess. Yeah.
So at the moment, the landowner does, because you don't get the certificate until you've achieved, or there's a good chance you're going to achieve the outcome. But I think, especially for a C plus B kind of project, that you'd want to partner early, just to be able to kind of share some of that risk around those upfront costs. We all know that those upfront costs are quite high.
So Ian, is your audio, it's really crackly at the moment.
All right, my computer's breaking down. Sorry, so I think I think this is actually quite a good example of where, like, you could potentially partner early with a person that wants to buy your certificate and share that upfront cost.
And you might just want to try moving your mouthpiece or something around a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit better. Or maybe?
That's better.
Yep, that's better. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think so.
Better-ish.
So, the nature of fair market is a buyer and a seller market. The government isn't the buyer. So I think, and you don't get a certificate until you've achieved the outcome. And so, which is the kind of tradable piece of property. But I think it's an example of where you partner early, you partner with someone that wants to buy your certificate down the track, and you share some of those upfront costs. So I think that's, at the moment it's going to be the landowner or the person that's trying to create the certificate is going to have to pay the upfront costs.
One of the advantages, I think, of the cost estimator and what we're trying to facilitate on PLANR, I suppose, is to create an artifact that a landholder can book to sort of say, look, I'm not, this is actually how much it costs to do this work. So be a bit more transparent and I guess detailed about why stuff costs what it costs, and to give the landholder a very transparent understanding of the potential investment they need to go looking for, and then give them an artifact to talk to those investors about, to say, well, hey, as Ian said, partner with me up front on this. Here's transparently what we're looking at. Let's do this sort of thing together. Yeah.
And do you think, so will PLANR be used to like matchmake for projects and investors, or it won't? That'll happen in a different space. Like, is that going to happen through CER or elsewhere?
So the CER is just the register. They're not the kind of matchmaker. I think PLANR, I certainly see PLANR as having a role. We did have a kind of a matchmaking role for the pilots, and you can see at the top of that bar there's Browse Marketplace. So we've got a pretty basic kind of marketplace. I think it's probably not a day one priority to have that up and running, but we can probably reuse this to a degree. Ideally, down the track, once we have a few more projects and a few more people that want to enter the market, I think like an all home style kind of allow people to kind of advertise their potential project or their certificate and kind of brand it and say, well, here are all these species that I'm also protecting. And because I think the nature of fair market will be a lot about that, like it's how you brand.
Ian, sorry, your audio is pretty terrible. I'm not sure if you can just sort of go through your computer, or if looks like you've kind of got other people behind you. I don't know if you can take your headset off and or whether you've got the potential to do it.
What's going to bad?
Have we got any other questions? I've got one in the chat. So I think this question I can probably almost answer. So we've got, what would you normally do for a landholder that expresses interest, or would they rely on service providers? I mean, I think at the moment, because of the nascent nature of the nature repair market, like it's sort of not up and running yet. So I would imagine that at the moment, this is sort of a planning tool that's in development for the repair market, but you can also use it, people could also use it, as I said, just to cost projects and to understand a bit about their emissions profiles, etc. in the short term. Is that a fair response to that question? Matt can comment.
Yeah. I think that's true. So one thing we're trying to make PLANR, we're trying to ensure with PLANR is that it's generic enough for people to plan a project under any scheme. So obviously the nature repair market's coming, and there's going to be a whole set of methods and things that are associated with that. But we're trying to make sure that things aren't designed specifically enough for the instance where people aren't interested in that and actually just want to cost a project for themselves and understand a little bit more about the land in the sense of what benefits it could provide for them for environmental services. So yeah, we're trying to design this thing to kind of cater to both in a way. So there's no sort of assumption that if you're not like you can't use PLANR if you're not thinking about a nature repair market project. I don't think we want that. That wouldn't be a good outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just going to stay generally available to people, and it will eventually be linked to the market in a way, or informed by methods and things as they emerge.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And I think you said, and I don't think we looked at it, but there's a way even at the moment that you can sort of get a basic, or there will be a way you can get a sort of biodiversity score for a project that you're planning.
Yes. Yeah. So it's currently in development. What's live at the moment is the ability to, sorry, I'll just go back to the old environment. So at the moment we have what's called a condition for biodiversity score. We're currently in sort of mid-development of creating a way that people will be able to do this in a much more kind of nature repair market aligned way, so much more consistent kind of landscape wide way. This is kind of a bit of I guess a prototype, if you like, for that. But you can see how this is calculated using both local condition as well as habitat connectivity. Like it's quite an advanced kind of method for compared to what exists on the internet at the moment.
And I see there it specifically references the regional NRM area.
That's right. Yes, correct. So that's how the condition for biodiversity, because it's it needs to be considerate of the landscape of which it's in. There's kind of like no weird national kind of equivalent or anything like that. So yes, it's still a useful metric to think about what it means, like this relationship between land use, land cover, and your potential for supporting biodiversity.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Are there more questions from the group? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute and ask your question.
I will stop sharing for now.
Thanks, Matt.
So I can see faces.
Great. Okay. How much will the biodiversity score matter in the nature repair space?
I'm looking to Ian, but I know his microphone's busted. It feels like an Ian question. Maybe we don't know yet is the answer.
To be determined, I think. It would definitely be a part of it. I also think that potentially the nature repair market, like that you will be able to define a biodiversity benefit and compare that across. The idea is that you can compare across projects, but I think there's other kind of marketing things in play in regards to the nature repair market, because the nature repair market is just voluntary. It's not trying to offset loss somewhere else. It's only gain, and so I think you could say, well, as an investor, I'm just going to go for the best bang for your buck in regards to biodiversity benefit. But then there's other reasons why corporates get involved in the nature repair market, and it might be just because it's operating in a region that they operate in, or it's specifically around a species that they want to put on there. So I think the DBAM score will be important, but also there'll be other factors that kind of influence why people invest in the nature repair market.
And presumably a landholder might also just set the price for a project.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
so they could, figure out how much it's worth, put a percentage on top of it, and say, well, there's a lot of risk of me entering the market. Trees might die or fires go through, and until you get the certificate, then you don't get something that you can trade. So you probably want to put a bit of a cap on top of that cost of establishing. So you kind of put incorporate your risk, I suppose, into the process.
Thanks, Ian. Are there any other questions? Carla's asked a question. You can ask it if you like, Carla. It's in the chat, but I'll let you.
Hello. I was just being mindful there when we were having that, when you were talking just then, Ian, about possibly double dipping on biodiversity, as in you can't count it twice. And I was thinking of that in the context of the ACCU scheme as well, where we started off with ACCUs, with co-benefits, sort of premium ACCUs, where the biodiversity and conservation value of that, has added value for environmental planning. So it's added value to those ACCUs in the market. And then if you're actually, counting the nature repair market biodiversity value, you couldn't also have a premium ACCU, with that other value. So what you're just saying then, in my mind, is the same thing. You're double dipping on the biodiversity value of a project. You can only count it once, surely.
Well, the biodiversity certificate is independent of the carbon market. You do, there's all these rules around additionality, and I think they're still working that through. Certainly the first one is looking at how do we align with a carbon, environmental planning project. So it's going to be quite similar to the Carbon Plus pilots, but that's all still to be determined. And actually, the Nature Repair Committee is meeting for the first time today to work all this stuff out, I suppose.
Yeah, if your biodiversity is being assessed as a certificate for the nature repair market, then it couldn't be used for any other environmental market scheme.
Yeah, as in biodiversity, I think you could definitely use it for carbon though. So you could potentially get carbon. Yeah.
Well, the first method under the nature repair market is going to be a carbon plus biodiversity method, isn't it, Ian? So won't that kind of cancel out the ability to sort of, I guess, sell premium carbon and sell, the carbon will have a price, the biodiversity certificate will have a price. I assume that there'll be a way that they come together, or they're separated so that people aren't double dipping on the value. So if you want a premium carbon credit, then I assume you'll have to buy the biodiversity certificate that's associated with that project.
Yeah.
That's my assumption, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if that's right.
Or the carbon just goes to, it might have a slight premium in the sense that it's associated with a nature repair market project, but the actual biodiversity value can't be added to the ACCU because it's already been counted for the biodiversity certificate.
Yeah. It's actually hard to see a situation where somebody would want to buy a biodiversity certificate that's already been paid for through carbon. I don't know, maybe that's naive, but I mean, at the moment, it looks like the market is going to mostly be looking for carbon plus projects rather than straight nature.
So they're going to join up. So there won't be a situation where someone's selling an ACCU separately. So for that.
That's what I would guess, but I mean, I think it's something that we need to keep considering when we're looking at the establishment of the market and looking how the methods are coming forward to make sure they've got integrity.
Sorry to keep going, but can I just tell you why the context of that question? Just for example, so there's an investor in our region who is looking for ACCUs, but they said to me they don't want the nature positive, credit side of it, because they really just need ACCUs. So therefore, the farmer could have that, and then you're sort of splitting it. So therefore, if the farmer's keeping the biodiversity certificate from this one project, and the company that's helping set it up just really wants the ACCUs, those ACCUs can't also have premium because they're sort of separate.
Or I think in that situation, Carla, it'd be more that the purchaser of the ACCUs can't claim, greener credentials because they haven't actually paid for the biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it a greenwashing question?
Yeah, they'd be just ACCUs. They'd just be sort of ACCUs that are contributing to nature repair. So there might be a bit of social license aspect, but the actual monetary value of that can't be tacked on twice.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ian.
It's a twisty question.
It is. I think we can probably get back to you about that. I think.
I think. Sorry. I just wanted to, that's something that's weighing on my mind as well, I guess, is there's an obvious demand and need for the carbon market, but when it comes to the nature repair, I'm not hearing or seeing that demand. So I can completely imagine that same sort of situation, like Carla said, that people are wanting just the carbon, and there's going to be all these biodiversity kind of projects that are not wanting to be paid for by the by the same purchaser that's wanting the carbon. So I do see this as being a bit of a messy space that what Carla's bringing up.
Oops, sorry, Ian, I muted you because you had a bit of background, but please go.
I think the nature repair market will put a kind of additionality on the monitoring aspect of it. Like the ACCUs, environmental planning ACCUs, and most carbon projects don't have that biodiversity monitoring aspect. Like you're not going to have to prove that you've achieved the outcome. Like you can plant, native trees, but then the actual measurement of actual biodiversity outcome isn't established in the carbon market, whereas we are putting on quite strong and transparent ways of making sure that people go out and measure that the actual biodiversity outcome is being achieved. So it's definitely not. It's going to be harder, like an environmental. It's going to be much harder than environmental planning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think. Sorry. I was going to say, I think the same buyer, it probably won't end up being too much of an issue. The same buyer will probably want both out of a project. But yeah, it just it is a greenwashing question. Yeah.
Thanks, Carla, for the question, and thanks very much, Ian and Matt and Kath, for joining us. We've run a little bit over time, but it was useful to have the conversation, I think.